Welcome into Weather Wednesday here at New England Storm Center. So, several days of daily downpours and heavy thunderstorms are really starting to cause some problems for communities across New England. Rainfall from these storms over the past few days have really been starting to add up for some communities. Total rainfall over the past few days, dating back to the weekend, has been highly variable from community to community. Some towns and cities haven't really seen much of anything, while others have been nailed by, in some places, a half a foot plus of rain. Andover, Maine, Andover, New Hampshire, Alexandria, New Hampshire being a few of the towns that have seen nearly 6 inches or over 6 inches of rain. Alexandria, New Hampshire, has been one of the hardest communities hit over these past few days. They actually saw about 6 inches of rain in one violent, long lasting thunderstorm from Sunday night through Monday morning. About 6 inches of rain did fall during that one storm. That caused some serious problems. Many roads washed out in that town. There were numerous lightning strikes along with the torrential rain that just went on and on and on for hours. A storm report from Alexandria did say numerous roads washed out with culverts exposed and pavement collapsed. Plummer Hill Road, Matthews Road, Burns Hill Road, Foster Pond, King Road, just a few of the roads that did suffer serious damage. So once the sun came up on Monday morning, several roads were seen to be destroyed while others were covered in a thick layer of mud. There was one picture of an intersection that just has just this mound of mud on it. You can see in a picture just the stop sign barely sticking out over the mud. Alexandria, they did set up a shelter at the Alexandria Town Hall for residents whose houses were cut off by the damage. I believe it was about 30 houses that were completely cut off from being able to go anywhere because all the roads around had been destroyed and are impassable. Of course, crews have been out working around the clock. And again, what happened in Alexandria, that was just Sunday night through Monday in one of the rounds of downpours. The torrential downpours have not stopped since that weekend. They've been continuing every single day since then. And on Monday afternoon through Monday evening, another round of slow-moving storms caused more flash flooding. On Tuesday evening, a flash flood warning was issued for south central New Hampshire. It was more east than central, but it was in the general, Nashua to Manchester area. Some parked cars were caught up in a flash flood in Manchester. There was a storm report from Manchester that said flooding on Green Street and Beach Street, water up to car hoods. So despite that report, there were no injuries or rescues or, any kind of incidents reported with that particular flood. In Dracut, Massachusetts, which was near the flash flood warning in south central New Hampshire, they reported a small mudslide from flooding that blocked Route 110. Similar to what it was likely similar to what we saw in Alexandria in that picture with that intersection there. Later on Monday evening, a flash flood warning was issued for southwest New Hampshire and southern Vermont. Chesterfield, New Hampshire was another community hit hard by the flooding. Several roads in the town got washed out. Chesterfield police did work around the clock again to make the roads passable. They reported that all the damaged roads were made passable as of about 1:30 a.m. on Tuesday, so they got things up and running again pretty quickly, which is good on their front after what happened in their town. So moving over to Maine, in Andover, Maine, which was one of the communities that picked up about 6 inches of rain, a woman and her 3 dogs had to be rescued from their car on Monday morning. The fire chief of Andover said the car was found to be stalled in nearly 2 feet of water. The woman and her three dogs were all rescued successfully, and no injuries were reported in that incident. Andover was similar to Alexandria, where they saw several roads washed out and some residents were stranded from the damaged roads being impassable. So the storms not only packed intense rainfall, which again was always the primary threat of these storms, the other threats were kind of secondary. We knew that the flooding was going to be a big issue with these storms, and that's what transpired. That's what transpired. But in some cases, there were severe thunderstorms, strong to severe storms with damaging winds. In Monday afternoon's round of storms, several severe thunderstorm warnings were issued across Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. These storms brought down numerous tree branches, which in turn brought down wires, which led to thousands losing power at one point Monday afternoon. In Spofford, New Hampshire, which is in southwest New Hampshire, a large tree came down and caused extensive damage to a building when it crashed into it. 4 people were assessed for injuries at the scene, but no major injuries were reported and no one was hospitalized. So it has been an unsettled week, to say the least, for New England in this very unsettled pattern that has been with us for a few weeks now, but it really came to a head over this past week since the last Weather Wednesday. So, speaking of that unsettled pattern, you know how 2 weeks ago I said New England's weather until further notice, meaning the current pattern wherein shows no signs of breaking down? And then last week I said that it's still until further notice. Well, for the end of this week and into next week, some changes are in store. The overall messy pattern remains rather locked in place with a blocked up ridge of high pressure to our west. That is the big driver of this pattern. The blocked high pressure to our west, thanks to a blocking high to our east, which is causing New England to be in a trough. Despite this pattern being very persistent and remaining in place, some drier weather is in the cards for the holiday weekend. And I said messy instead of dreary, as there have been many dry hours for a lot of the region and some cloud clearing as well. Where I am in southeast New Hampshire, there have been a couple of very nice evenings. Yesterday evening was very, very nice. The showers and storms have overall been very localized, as you can tell by the flooding and damage that has occurred. The flooding has been very localized rather than widespread across the region. But anyway, it looks like most of New England will get a break from all of this scattered rain from Thursday evening through Saturday. Western areas should get more of a break from Thursday to Friday, while eastern areas will get that break from Friday to Saturday. This is because an area of low pressure, the one that was with us all this week, that sent in those flooding downpours, will be pushing to our east by tomorrow, which would allow western areas to clear out first. Then, over the weekend, a second area of low pressure will begin pushing in from the west. So for Saturday, it will generally be drier the further east you go, with eastern Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire, and western Maine being the most dry. In this pattern, a spot shower is possible anywhere. It's just how it is. But these areas will generally be the driest. And with this overall pattern in place, another low pressure system is never far behind. By Sunday, another one will likely drift through New England and last through Monday, with clearing from west to east on Monday. Sunday will likely feature the most widespread shower and storm activity across the region, as once again, locally heavy downpours will be possible Sunday afternoon through Monday, as that low pressure drags an associated warm front through New England. Overall, it looks like the White Mountains will be the most unsettled through the weekend. For the 4th of July, there will likely be a risk for some thunderstorms, but it is looking mainly dry for most. The key to the 4th will be where the area of low pressure that came through on Sunday to Monday is. Again, in this pattern, these low pressure systems do not move quickly. Overall, it looks like only isolated pockets of storms will pop up on Tuesday, mainly associated with daytime heating. This means it would be the storms would be more typical summertime afternoon storms with partly cloudy skies most of the day and warm temperatures. Unfortunately, this pattern makes it very difficult to pinpoint details 6 days out. Some patterns are easier to predict. A big old ridge of high pressure would make for easier forecasting than what we've had. And, some patterns aren't, like constant cutoff lows meandering through the region. A westerly flow should also boost temperatures for next week, with widespread 80s looking increasingly likely for much of next week, including the 4th, with upper 70s into the mountains. Overall, it does look to be a rather summery 4th of July for most. I say this with bated breath as the overall unsettled pattern does remain in place, and as long as we're in this pattern, we'll never really be safe from pop-up rain. Again, that's just how it is with this overall pattern. Of course, with the overall unsettled pattern, you can always get a few dry days mixed in. There are signals of overall drier times for next week, particularly around mid next week to late next week. We'll have to keep watching this as New England will likely remain in that trough with the high pressure to the west and the east. So a storm system could very easily form and dash those hopes, especially here over a week out that we are talking now. So that is going to do it for this edition of the Weather Wednesday podcast here at New England Storm Center. So, as always, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and you will hear from me again next Wednesday, the first Weather Wednesday of July.